haven't abandoned or forgot my personal blogs playlist. It's just obviously I've been busier with mostly my sports content as well as my Remember the Calgary series. But let's get back into my personal blogs by talking sports, obviously. Here we are up to personal blog number 93. I call this one What Other Sports I Casually Follow. As a Calgary sports fan, I follow most intensely the teams that I mostly talk about with the Calgary Flames, the Calgary Hitmen, Calgary Roughnecks, and the Calgary Stampeders. But I also do casually follow other Major League sports. I could talk about other teams that I liked over the years and liked a little more. It kind of evolves at the same time. I'm always going to be the Calgary sports fan, as that's the city I'm from and live in and always proudly represent. But, I also during, when there was no sports going on, I did follow along the other major leagues on their return to play plans and how they executed and compared it. But right now, I prefer them as the San Diego Chargers. They are the Los Angeles Chargers, so they are my NFL team. I know longtime player Philip Rivers is now with the Indianapolis Colts, and I know that my parents actually asked me, "Are you a Colts fan now?" And I know why they asked me, because of Philip Rivers going to the Indianapolis Colts. But no, I'm still a team of the franchise. There seem to be, kind of the lovable team on the West Coast. And, Southern California, can't complain about a team that's in Southern California. And I think it also really spawned on the fact it was a combination of, I went to San Diego. It's been, believe it or not, it's been almost 20 years since I've been to San Diego as my last family vacation, with my sister and my mom and dad. And I actually did see Qualcomm Stadium. And yet it is quite out of the way from the city itself. Because when I went to San Diego, we primarily went to SeaWorld and the zoo as well. And saw the beauty of Southern California. Still a couple years removed from being in Southern California for the first time, as I went to Disneyland. Landed in Los Angeles from Calgary. I actually know went to Los Angeles from Calgary. I was thinking of the San Diego itinerary was we went to Seattle, then went to San Diego. But I've seen Southern California in Anaheim, and I definitely love Southern California. And I also compared it to when we were in San Diego, that it felt a lot like, the Okanagan Valley with Kelowna, Penticton and Soyuz. That's where I also made that personal blog where I talked about, I think, British Columbia is Canada's California. And San Diego is definitely a beautiful city, but also at that same time, being a Calgary Stampeders fan at one time, Doug Flutie, I would say, best quarterback that I'd say ever played in, not only for the Calgary Stampeders, but in the CFL debatably. And I would say even as great as how Bo Levi Mitchell has been for the Calgary Stampeders, Doug Flutie has been the best quarterback to ever play for the Calgary Stampeders. Maybe some of it is also nostalgia, maybe as time goes on, depending on who comes in. I would say that right now I'd still put Bo at number 2. Well, Flutie number 1, but he also played with the San Diego Chargers after when he was with the Buffalo Bills. After he spent his time in the CFL, and still got to wonder, the Buffalo Bills, they chose Rob Johnson over Doug Flutie in the playoff game, I believe, even though Flutie was the better quarterback. And I was kind of upset with that, but he went to San Diego and had a home there. And at the same time, the San Diego Chargers also got Dave Dickenson, who is now the head coach of the Calgary Stampeders. Dave Dickenson also learned under Doug Flutie. And at that same time, after Steve Young in San Francisco with the 49ers, Jeff Garcia also, went to the San Francisco 49ers. I know there's a few pictures of me wearing some San Francisco 49ers gear. From the days of Steve Young. But Joe Montana, who I would say, in my mind, you could also say I've seen Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, but I would say Joe Montana for the NFL was the best quarterback that I've seen play. But Tom Brady is pretty close, and apparently Tom Brady was also close to going to the Los Angeles Chargers. It would still be weird. He did pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it would have been weird to see Tom Brady as a Charger back when he always destroyed the San Diego Chargers in the playoffs. And that would still have been weird in those AFC battles, but getting back to that, the combination going to San Diego and former Stampeders playing for the San Diego Chargers at the time. And there was a preseason game that the San Francisco 49ers and the San Diego Chargers played each other and actually featured those three quarterbacks, and Doug Flutie, Jeff Garcia, and Dave Dickinson. They actually all posed as a picture together in their NFL gear, but wearing Stampeders hats. And speaking of those two teams, I know that one tidbit I've heard that was the last Super Bowl when the San Francisco 49ers, and they did destroy my San Diego Chargers in the Super Bowl, and that was the last time that both the San Francisco 49ers won the Super Bowl. Yeah, the last time they won it. And the fact that last time that both participating teams in the Super Bowl were from the same state of California. So I would say I do casually follow the San Diego / Los Angeles Chargers. I prefer them as the San Diego Chargers, but my team is still in Southern California, and you can't complain about that, being in Alberta. Find an excuse to go to Southern California to catch a football game. Whenever we're allowed to do that, can't complain about that. But that's my NFL team. I know you could say I should be a Seahawks fan, being that I live in Calgary, and I have lots of fans that cheer for landmark teams like the Dallas Cowboys or the Green Bay Packers or the San Francisco 49ers, or some could say, why weren't you a Jets fan when LaDainian Tomlinson, who I'd say one of the best running backs to ever play in the NFL, I would still say that would have to be Barry Sanders for the Detroit Lions, but Daniel Thompson, I always remember him as a Charger. He did play for the Jets. I know they had a Junior Seau, but he had a brief comeback, but he played for the Patriots, if I believe. So there was kind of that, and then I know Dan Fouts was the legend in the past, so I do casually follow the Chargers, regardless if they're in San Diego or Los Angeles. I know the first year of the franchise, when they were established in 1960, they were the Los Angeles Chargers, and then they played in San Diego and had a stadium dispute and couldn't come to agreement. So that's why they're Los Angeles, and you can debate about how much Los Angeles supports their teams, because they have the Chargers and Rams, but the Super Bowl, going back to Los Angeles, it would be more of the Rams, because my Chargers are definitely, they had their chance 10 years ago with Philip Rivers, Dane Thompson, Antonio Gates, and then he had Marty Schottenheimer, and then he had a glorified coordinator and Norv Turner as head coach. So, and they still almost did it. And I still remember the San Diego Chargers almost beat the New England Patriots the year that they went undefeated and then got upset by the New York Giants in the AFC Championship. And that was with Dane Thompson out and Philip Rivers barely playing. So I guess it's the perils of being a Charger fan. So that's enough with the NFL. But when it comes to Major League Baseball, well, I could say now my team is the Toronto Blue Jays, being that Canada's team. I also do miss the Montreal Expos. I do have that Expos cap that I occasionally wear in videos. I don't actually have some Toronto Blue Jays merchandise, believe it or not, but you only have so much money to buy merchandise, and these are teams that I casually follow. During COVID-19, I did request for someone to make me a Toronto Blue Jays mask that I'll sport, but I do like the Blue Jays a lot more over the years. I know actually growing up, I was more of a Florida Marlins fan, and I did get to enjoy them to win 2 World Series in 1997, where they had a great team, and then due to financial constraints, they had to blow the team up like right after they won the World Series in that extra innings against the Cleveland Indians. The next week it was like the whole team was blowing up, and then somehow they won it again in 2003, but it's not the same now. They don't have that same charm. They rebranded, and they don't look as good now as the Miami Marlins. So I would say the Blue Jays are my team. I miss the Montreal Expos, and I almost sympathize a lot more with the Montreal Expos more than the Toronto Blue Jays because the Montreal Expos, they were the kind of small market team, and before the lockout, when I always keep saying the lockout was necessary for the NHL to bring in the salary cap and a more fair economic system, because when the Montreal Expos were struggling to keep their good players and always lose them, and I would say they definitely were screwed in 1994. Where if that strike didn't happen and won the World Series, you might have an alternate universe. But I was thinking at the time the Montreal Expos were kind of like the farm team for the rest of the major leagues, and that's what it felt like being a Flames fan growing up, especially in the late 1990s, where we develop good players and then they go elsewhere and then they have great careers elsewhere. And it definitely felt tough the day when we traded Third and Fleury away. It felt like the Flames at the time, we were the Montreal Expos. I mean, I think it was just, the arrogance of Toronto market at the time and growing up that, the Blue Jays, looking back, I probably should have appreciated it a lot more when they won their back-to-back World Series. And I do remember seeing, after when Joe Carter hit that, game-winning home run in the bottom of the ninth, and I think that's the last time that's happened in baseball, that the World Series game was won on a home run back in 1993. I just remember Joe Carter, how he was celebrating. I was 11 at the time, just wanted to emulate that. It was like how he was celebrating it, especially seeing it in slow motion at that time. But I probably should have appreciated it a little more about the Toronto Blue Jays. But it was fun to see them finally get back into the playoffs when they did in 2015 and 2016. But it would be great if they ever get back and win the World Series. And I would say, with the exception of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I've seen every Toronto team possible win a championship other than the Maple Leafs. Well, I always got to throw in there, people say that the Toronto Maple Leafs have not won the Stanley Cup since 1967. I got to throw in there that they have not been to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1967. I think, I've seen every Canadian team in my lifetime at least gone to, well, I guess not the Winnipeg Jets, and they came close in 2018, but I've seen every other Canadian team at least gone to the Stanley Cup Finals once. Except for the Maple Leafs, and I guess got put in the Jets, but they're still a fairly new franchise with this reincarnation. But, that's what I got to say for Major League Baseball. It's got to be the Toronto Blue Jays, and then I miss the Montreal Expos. I don't have any, affiliation or connection to the Washington Nationals. Now that's where the Montreal Expos franchise is now, but I would say I was a Florida Marlins fan, but now it's the rebrand and, just get older, you're proud to be a Canadian, and just want to keep getting behind Toronto Blue Jays and Canada's team. So that's that for the Major League Baseball. And of course, getting into the NBA, well, it was kind of between two teams. Obviously, I was growing up during, the Michael Jordan era, and it had to be the Chicago Bulls, with the NBA Jam. Before, when they expanded to Canada, I always had to play the NBA Jam, but they didn't have Michael Jordan in that game, so I was always Scottie Pippen, and I was a Bulls fan. Casually growing up, with Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan, led by Phil Jackson as coach. Even though I question his personality, he's one of the best rebounders of all time. And Dennis Rodman, he was definitely very colorful character, and I'm just talking about his hair. But I, love the Chicago Bulls. I saw some history growing up, Larry Bird was just a little early in my childhood. I do remember a Nintendo game, Bird versus Jordan, but I definitely associated a lot more with the Chicago Bulls. And then when Canada got the Toronto Raptors, and then the Vancouver Grizzlies, who are now the Memphis Grizzlies, the team moved to Memphis, but, because Tennessee down there, they're definitely known for Grizzlies, yeah, exactly. But, I remember, there was the Naismith Cup, preseason tournament where they toured around Canada, and I did actually watch a couple Naismith Cup games in Calgary when it was the Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies. I gravitated more to the Toronto Raptors than the Vancouver Grizzlies. I think more just because I felt the Toronto Raptors, they had a cooler name, cooler color scheme, and the fact that the Toronto Raptors had a somewhat half-decent team to start than the Vancouver Grizzlies. Maybe also the fact that being a Calgary fan, I had more dislike towards Vancouver with their teams. But then the fact that Toronto also had Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady early in the days, and then it became more and more apparent that despite the fact that the Raptors weren't as good right away, they weren't as bad as the Vancouver Grizzlies, and eventually, they moved to Memphis, and you got to wonder if the Vancouver could ever get a NBA franchise again. I mean, Seattle should get their team back. They were screwed when that team moved to Oklahoma City, and I think once I find the name funny, the Climate Pledge Arena gets done, the revamped Key Arena for the Seattle Kraken, hopefully the Supersonics come back. But I gotta wonder if Vancouver, whatever you're a team in, alternate universe, when Vancouver Grizzlies drafted Steve Francis, remember him, who eventually he's like, I don't want to go to Vancouver, anywhere but Vancouver, and then they drafted him, and then they traded him to Houston and had a great career. And Vancouver obviously didn't get the return that warranted his return, but who knows what could have been if Steve Francis decided to actually play with Vancouver if they had a better chance. But the Raptors, they actually had a decent team, and then it was surreal to see him win the championship back in 2019. And I thought they had what it takes to win it again this year, and it seems to be a Toronto Boston thing that they can't win Game 7. That happens on basketball, which maybe the Toronto Maple Leafs can go just a little. But, that's what I have to say, the Toronto Raptors. And I think going back to the mask there, I did request to have Toronto Raptors with the NBA champions as a mask as well. So that's why I say, being casually a fall baseball and basketball, you got to pull for Canada's team. Being a Canadian myself, it'd be nice if Vancouver comes back in the NBA and give them another chance if they have a better, team right from the bats. But, Blue Jays and Raptors. And then when it comes to NHL, when it comes to other teams, well, actually, if I had a choice, if my choices were either Toronto or Montreal, I actually would lean towards Montreal over Toronto. Just because of their history and their colors and that, and the Shrine. I would think, it'd be cooler to be a Montreal Canadiens fan. Actually, I did actually buy a t-shirt when they won the Stanley Cup back in 1993, not knowing at the time that would have been the last time that a Canadian-based team will win the Stanley Cup as of this recording. And ever since then, many teams came oh so close, including my Flames. In 2004, I know Vancouver was close in 1994, but they had to come back from 3-1 down. Flames, we were up 3-2 at home, and that game went to overtime and what if, but I would say the Montreal Canadiens would be my other team that I would cheer for. Let's say if I grew up before, the Flames, it would have been intriguing, would have been like to be a Cowboys fan, going back to my Remember the Calgary series where I talked about the Calgary Cowboys in the World Hockey Association. But if my choice is either Maple Leafs or Canadiens, I'd probably lean towards the Canadiens. But, I kind of like both teams at times here and there. I would think player-wise, I would say, I think maybe another reason why I would like Montreal more than Toronto is when the Flames make big trades with the Toronto Maple Leafs, we've been on the wrong end of it. Say the Dougie Gilmour trade, the Ian Phaneuf trade, yeah, those didn't really work out in my mind. So Montreal, I would say. However, indirectly, we got Ryan McDonald from Toronto after he had a rift and went to Colorado, and then we got him from Colorado. I'm talking about the Rockies, the Colorado franchise that is now the New Jersey Devils that started off as the Kansas City Scouts. So, and then when it comes to an American, actually for a while there, I actually liked the Buffalo Sabres. Just because they had Dominic Hasek. And the look for the Buffalo Sabres now is better with their, blue that they have now and they're running Buffalo. Actually, I did like the Buffalo Sabres for a while. Dominic Hasek, and then they had Danny Briere. I think their best chance they had to win the Stanley Cup was, 2006, 7, 8 area. And when they had Dominic Hasek, because I would say in the era I grew up with Patrick Roy, Martin Brodeur, and Dominic Hasek. Dominic Hasek was the best goalie that I would say of that era, and 6 Vezina trophies, and just how he played, and we gotta make fun of his accent as well. But Dominic Hasek was very entertaining. he had his own unorthodox style of playing goal, but he knew how to keep the puck out, and that's kind of how I like the Buffalo Sabres. I think in terms of other teams I think it revolves over time, just based on the market that you like and don't like, or certain players. I remember actually growing up, I did kind of like the Pittsburgh Penguins a little because they had Mario Lemieux. Being young as that time, I was like, I most nostalgic for the original Super Mario game. And then I realized that they had this player named Mario Lemieux, who happened to be, blessed to grow up during the time when we had Mario Lemieux and Wayne Gretzky playing at the same time. And I do respect Wayne Gretzky and like Wayne Gretzky, but it was hard for me to like Wayne Gretzky as a player, knowing that he did start off his career with the Edmonton Oilers, and tough to like him when he plays for your rivalry team and you always lose to him. And kind of have to say the same about Connor McDavid. I appreciate Connor McDavid and how he's a special talent, and I'd be thrilled if I ever saw Connor McDavid on the street, even if I'm wearing my Calgary gear. But I would try to say, yeah, can you take it a little easy against my Flames? It's exciting to see those kind of players in the game, but Mario Lemieux, and they called him Super Mario. Being a little boy, I thought it was too outrageous to be true. They have this video game character, and they have Mario Lemieux. I would say over the years, I kind of got tired of Pittsburgh being successful. I like Sidney Crosby as a player, and same with Marc-Andre Fleury when they had him, but Pittsburgh had enough success. I've seen him win 5 Stanley Cups. But I like the Penguins a lot more when they had Mario Lemieux, even same with Jaromir Jagr, and we briefly had him. And I think American teams just evolve. It was nice to see, Colorado win the Stanley Cup when they had Ray Bourque. It was nice to see Detroit win the Stanley Cup finally with Steve Yzerman, and then they did again the following season for Vladimir Konstantinov. Those are my most emotional Stanley Cups that I remember. That's not Calgary, and same with St. Scotty Bowman get another ring in 2002, and of course Alexander Ovechkin winning in 2018. Teams I dislike. Well, there's 4 NHL teams I dislike. I put at the bottom of my list if I were to rank favorite teams. Obviously Edmonton and Vancouver because of the natural rivalry. But I also put Anaheim and Tampa Bay in that same vein as well. Mostly because of playoffs. As the Flames, 2004 was when I started putting Tampa Bay on the hit list after we lost to them in the tough Stanley Cup final. And then the Anaheim Ducks. We lost to them 3 times in the playoffs, and we can never seem to win in Anaheim in the Honda Center as well. So that's my reason, and it just evolves. There's just other teams that I casually follow. When it comes to the major leagues, and obviously golf. I did briefly follow golf here and there for a while, especially during the Tiger Woods era. And it was fun to play golf on PGA over the years, but I had time to play video games. But of course, Mike Weir, when he won the Masters in 2003 as a Canadian, that was also great as well. And then Stephen Ames, who originally was born in Trinidad and Tobago, but he moved to Canada and called Calgary home, so Calgary was his second home. So there was a couple of other golfers that I kind of liked as well, but I'm not into the PGA as much anymore, especially the Tiger craze as much. And then the fact that it comes down to stuff that I don't have enough of is time and money to play golf, and it's one of those games that I can't really do solo as well. And then of course I grew up as a bowler, and I can watch bowling, and I grew up with a 5-pin, but 10-pin, but there's a couple bowlers I know that on the 10-pin side. The biggest name that comes to mind right away is Walter Williams Jr. But that's basically all the sports that I casually follow when it comes to North America. There's really no overseas teams that I really like and cheer for. I'm not into the soccer, and I don't really have a favorite European or KHL team. I might occasionally just look over on that side of the border, or that side of the world, if there was any player of interest, but there's really no, teams that I follow internationally. I'm not huge into soccer and not in hockey. Obviously hockey in North America, it's mostly exclusively North America, and I mean, gridiron football. I mean, there used to be the European League, and there's a few other leagues, but they're not as big on the NFL level and CFL level. But that was basically all the sports that I casually follow in terms of teams and players. I mean, obviously, when it comes to NFL, I'm always going to say Chargers. And now, when I have to say for both the major leagues and the NBA, it's got to be Toronto, just being the proud Canadian. And then when it comes to the NHL outside of Calgary, I mean, I think as you get older, I mean, you'll still have some teams that you might like, but I think as I get older, it gets to looking beyond the team that I cheer more for the player. I mean, going back, let's say the CFL, it's going to happen one year, especially with the crossover system, that I'm going to be stuck, and I'll still be thrilled to be at the Grey Cup if the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Edmonton Eskimos play for the Grey Cup. Knowing that I'm not going to like whoever wins either way, my answer to that question, if anyone asks, is who do you want to win if that happened? I would say I would find a player on either side that I feel that needs a Grey Cup win the most, and I cheer for that player. And then the player has to not have a Grey Cup ring. That's how I'd answer that question. Is I'll look beyond the team, and I'll find a player, and I'll be cheering for the player. That I want that player to finally get a Grey Cup ring. That's how I'd answer that question. But I'd just say, what do you ask? What teams do you casually follow besides the ones that you primarily follow? And I think you might have figured that out from my previous videos based on what I wear and what I talk about. But that's all it is, and mostly it's just basically in North America. And now I'm getting to the point where I have my teams, but then there's certain players that I would cheer for regardless of where they're playing, just so they can have their personal success, as I meant to say. So as I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, but I also do have personal blogs, like this, for example, where I talk about whatever is on my mind, and I have a list still of many topics to pick out. It's just a matter of having time to make a video and apply my thoughts and share it with all you people out there. And I also do attempt to comedy, and I also do share my experiences when I'm on the road, right at a sporting event. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, you know what you need to do. Just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me and maybe get any updates what I plan to make videos on in the future. So I guess, let's go Chargers, as I have my Chargers gear on for this video, but you can figure all the teams that I casually cheer for and follow beyond the Calgary teams that I talk about. And of course, going back to my Remember the Calgary series, it's talking about Calgary sports teams from the past. So as I say, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.